Let me tell you a story about a man named Abraham. Yes, that Abraham, the one who became the father of many nations. But this isn't just a story of history. It's a story about something deeper, something that stretches across centuries right into your heart. You see, Abraham wasn't perfect. He had doubts, made mistakes, and wandered. Yet God looked at Abraham and saw something powerful, faith. And in that faith, God found something greater than rules, greater than rituals. He found trust. And he called that trust righteousness. Now, people in Abraham's time, just like in ours, often believed that to be right with God, you had to follow all the rules. Do this. Don't do that. Circumcise here. Sacrifice there. The law was seen like a ladder to heaven, with each rung a rule. Miss one, and you fall. But Paul, the apostle who wrote to the believers in Rome, wanted them and us to know something radical, something that flips everything upside down. He said, Abraham was made right with God not because of what he did, but because of what he believed. Pause and let that sink in. Not because of a ritual, not because he earned it, but because he trusted that God would do what he promised. Let's walk for a moment into the life of a Roman believer, a young man named Marcus. Born a Gentile, he knew nothing of the Jewish laws. He didn't grow up memorizing Moses or celebrating feasts. But one day, he heard about Jesus, the one who died and rose again, and he believed. And then came the questions from others. Have you been circumcised? Do you keep the Sabbath? Are you eating the right foods? And Marcus began to doubt. Was he really part of God's family? Was he missing something? Paul's letter to the Romans came like fresh rain on a parched soul. He read, Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness, not after circumcision, but before, not by works, but by grace, not earned, but gifted. Imagine being Marcus, realizing that what made Abraham right with God wasn't religious ceremony, but raw trust. That God's promise was received through faith, not performance. Paul explained it like this. If salvation were a paycheck, it wouldn't be a gift, it would be a wage. But God doesn't hand out paychecks for righteousness. He gives it like a father hands a child, and embrace freely, out of love. This is what grace looks like. David, the great king of Israel, knew it too. Paul quoted him, Blessed are those whose sins are forgiven, whose wrongs are covered. Blessed is the one the Lord will never count sin against. Grace is a covering, not a courtroom. It is love that writes over your failures, not guilty. Abraham was promised something impossible, that he, old and childless, would become the father of nations. And yet, he believed. He looked at his old body and still trusted. He saw Sarah's barren womb and still hoped. He heard God's voice, and though he didn't see how it was enough. Paul says Abraham didn't waver in unbelief. Oh, he had questions, but he kept walking. He kept trusting. And because of that, grace was poured over him like oil. And here's the miracle. That same grace is for us. Paul says that this story wasn't just written for Abraham. It was written for you. If you believe that God raised Jesus from the dead, if you trust that what Christ did on the cross is enough, then righteousness, right standing with God is yours. No temple, no priest, no rule book, just grace. So here we are, thousands of years later, still learning what Abraham knew beneath a starlit sky. That faith opens the door and grace rushes in. Let the law teach you. Let it point you to the holiness of God. But let grace hold you. Let grace cover what the law could never fix. You are not saved by your best day, nor damned by your worst. You are saved because God made a promise and He keeps it. So walk today like Abraham walked, not by sight, not by effort, but by faith, because the door has been opened. And grace is the key.